Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jamuna Vanachari Jamuna Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhaja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Bhaja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jai Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Vijay Gauradesh Nitai Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astotra Sata Srimad Abhayacharanaravindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astotra Sata Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhani Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mathura Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai Shri Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Okay. Jai Prabhupada. Today we read again from a transcendental diary, Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976 by Hari Sari Prabhu. Prabhupada heard today from Hrishikesh Anandadas, a former sannyasi. He is now married and living in Nepal, where he is trying to open a center. He sent an effusive letter describing the possibilities and mentioned several important contacts he has made, including, impressively, the King of Nepal himself. He was asking for some help and invited Prabhupada to come at his earliest convenience. Prabhupada was pleased to hear from him, as it has been a while since he was last in contact. He was glad that he is still intent on preaching despite his change of ashram. I shall send Akshaya Ananda as soon as possible, he wrote back. Let him survey the situation there. As soon as possible, I shall also come. Worship Shalagram Shila nicely, husband and wife. Do not forget to follow strictly the 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds minimum daily. My thanks are due to His Holiness Sri Kali Baba Maharaj and His Majesty for trying to help our movement there. I am eager to open a nice center in Nepal. Quite a few pictures here. So let's go a little bit more. Sachimata Dasi wrote a short letter from Germany. 2 weeks ago, Prabhupada advised her that she should stay there rather than come here to India, where he feels it will be difficult for her. She appreciated his advice and stated her desire to follow it. You are an ocean of mercy, and you are my dear spiritual master. So I shall accept all, and I try to serve you and Krishna here. Because her plans to come to India were now curtailed, she offered her airfare of 1,000 Deutschmarks to Srila Prabhupada for use in the Vrindavan temple. Still, she added a note expressing her hope that she may yet make it there. Later, I hope that you call me to a service in India. I know Krishna is everywhere, and I made the experience last year for the festival that to live in India is difficult for an older body. But because we are not the body, I could bear all. Encouraged through your preaching and the power from the holy places. My desire to the Supreme Lord is to live the rest of my life in Vrindavan or near Himalaya, and then I can give back to Krishna my body and my soul in the holy country India. Thank you for your blessings. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada appreciated her offering and sent a brief reply giving the account information where to send her Guru Dakshin. Prabhupada got a brief letter from Vasudev Prabhu in Fiji. Vasudev briefly stated that he had received a copy of the letter Rameshwara Swami had sent to Srila Prabhupada in mid-September regarding the situation in Fiji, but he has not seen Prabhupada's reply. He also enclosed a photocopy of the land title to confirm that everything was in ISKCON's name. Srila Prabhupada was pleased to hear from Vasudeva. He is keen to see that Vasudeva is encouraged and helped in developing ISKCON Fiji. And he is happy that Rameshwara has succeeded in resolving some of the misunderstandings there. In his reply, He quoted his entire letter to Rameshvara from September 26th, adding an extra paragraph at the end. Whatever Rameshvara and yourself will do, that is all right. Now you order huge quantity of Hindi and Gujarati books from our BBT office in Mumbai. Distribute as much literature as possible, English, Hindi, and Gujarati. That is real preaching. Thank you very much. So there's a natural break there, so I'm going to end it there. Would somebody like to comment on that? Short story? Jai Shri Shri Jai Gauradesh Dayanitai Ki Jai. Okay. I have nothing to say either, but it's nice hearing about Prabhupada. Okay. I'm going to give lecture today. Today we'll have lecture again. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti Vedanta purports on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, the creative impetus, chapter 4, the characteristics of Rishabdev, verse 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm just going to read it. It's in prose, and then afterwards we can do the word for word. I like to read the Sanskrit, just the sound of it, actually. So please excuse while it goes on. Bhagavat arshabhena parirakshamana itasmin varshe nakaschana purusho vanchati avidyamanam avivat mano nyasmat katanchana kimapi. Karhichid avekshati bhartari anusavanam vidrimbhita snehati sayam antarena. Bhagavata. By the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rishabhena. King Rishabha. Parirakshamane. Being protected. Etasmin. On this. Varshe. Planet. Na. Not. Kaschana. Anyone. Purushaha. Even a common person. Vanchati. Desires. Avidyamanam. Not existing in reality. Eva. As if. Atmanaha. For himself. Anyasmat. For anyone else. Katanchana. By any means. Kimapi. Anything. Karhichit. At any time. Avekshate. Does care to see. Bhartari. Toward the master. Anusavanam. Always. Vidrimbhita. Expanding. Sneha atisayam. Very great affection. Antarena. Within one's self. Translation. No one likes to possess anything that is like a will-o'-the-wisp or a flower in the sky. For everyone knows very well that such things do not exist. When Lord Rishabdev ruled this planet of Bharatavarsha, even common people did not want to ask for anything at any time or by any means. No one ever asks for a will-o'-the-wisp. In other words, everyone was completely satisfied, and therefore there was no chance of anyone's asking for anything. The people were absorbed in great affection for the king. Since this affection was always expanding, they were not inclined to ask for anything. Purport by His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In Bengal, the word Godha Dimba is used, which means the egg of a horse. Since a horse never lays an egg, the word Godha Dimba actually has no meaning. In Sanskrit, there is a word ka pushpa, which means the flower in the sky. No flower grows in the sky. Therefore, no one is interested in asking for the ka pushpa or Godha Dimba. During the reign of Maharaj Rishabdev, people were so well equipped that they did not want to ask for anything. They were immensely supplied with all necessities for life due to King Rishabdev's good government. Consequently, everyone felt full satisfaction and did not want anything. This is the perfection of government. If the citizens are unhappy due to bad government, the heads of government are condemned. During these democratic days, monarchy is disliked by the people. But here is an example of how an emperor of the whole world kept all the citizens fully satisfied by supplying the necessities of life and following the Vedic principles. Thus everyone was happy during the reign of Maharaj Rishabdev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Angyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam. No one likes to possess anything that is like a will-o'-the-wisp or a flower in the sky. For everyone knows very well that such things do not exist. When Lord Rishabdev ruled this planet of Bharatavarsha, even common people did not want to ask for anything, at any time, or by any means. No one ever asks for a will-o'-the-wisp. In other words, everyone was completely satisfied, and therefore, there was no chance of anyone's asking for anything. The people were absorbed in great affection for the king. Since the affection was always expanding, they were not inclined to ask for anything. Okay, so people were well equipped that they did not want to ask. They were immensely supplied with all necessities for life due to King Rishabdev's good government. So that's a really nice place to start talking about. Unfortunately, my German is not so advanced yet that I can speak in German, but I'm working on it. So this part about good government is very important. And what comes to mind is Lord Ramachandra. In the kingdom of Lord Ramachandra, there was no disease. There was no pharmacy. Because Lord Ramachandra was a perfect ruler. And so the example here is that leadership is very important. Proper leadership is very important. Proper leadership is very important, not only, and I'll try to talk slowly. Proper leadership is very important not only for the goodwill of the leader, but for the goodwill of the people. And what is proper leadership? Well, I can think of improper leadership because there's a lot of good examples. Practically speaking, everywhere is a good example. But I heard there's a small country called Bhutan where they have a happiness index and their policies are implemented to increase happiness. I don't know, they might be Mayavadis though. But they're really careful with the environment, and so there's a lot of unfortunate examples of leadership. But the leader of the people is obliged to guide the people into spiritual life. I was reading today in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, chapter 1, verse 11. In the first sentence, or first couple of sentences, it says that the living entity, the heart of the living entity, something about the heart of the living entity needs to be satisfied. The heart needs to be satisfied. But at heart, we are not material. We are spiritual. And so when we speak of the welfare of living entities, our humanity, actually the leader should consider the welfare of all living entities in the place of his or her jurisdiction, Gebiet. All living entities, not just the humans, but also the ants and the deer and the birds and the flowers, everybody. So, for the human, this is a special category of living entity because they have this ability to question their existence. Right? They are not in the modes completely controlled, like animals and other living entities, lower species. So the prime necessity, right, is spiritual engagement, is self-realization, right? Selbstverwirklichung. That's the prime necessity. That's the topic of the day. And what is once also very nice, coincidentally, by satisfying this self-realization, right, we also become happy. We also become satisfied in our mind and in our heart. Because in this engagement, the means and the end are the same. It's spiritual engagement. So the way for self-realization is actual activities of devotional service. So the leader of the society is supposed to engage the citizens according to that, right? But how do we understand that that's not happening? There must be some symptom. There must be a symptom when that's not happening. In every institution, a big country or a workplace, institution. Anyway, the result, a family institution, right? The result is that there is not happiness. There is dissatisfaction. And why is there dissatisfaction? The reason there's dissatisfaction is because there is a hankering that isn't being satisfied. Right? And the reason why there's a hankering that's not being satisfied is because there's a lack of devotional service. So that's actually at the core of it. We can always go back to that and understand, therefore, that, okay, if there's some disturbance in the institution, there's a lack of devotional service. And devotional service begins by hearing and chanting. Shravanam and Kirtanam, right? About Vishnu. But this process, of course, it has to be gradual. It's a gradual process. And the results are, of course, in the beginning not always forthcoming. So there would be like disturbances in the process of carrying out devotional service. And that's because our anarthas are coming out, the unwanted things within our heart. What's very important is that as these anarthas start to come out, we have to pay attention to them and notice them. I can tell you from my own personal experience that what has kept me back the most in spiritual life, what has been the biggest obstacle for my advancement in spiritual life, is that I would willingly commit sinful activities, not recognizing them as sinful activities. I wouldn't recognize it. I'm not talking about, breaking one of the 4 regulative principles. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, Mang chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogana sevate sagunat samatichaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Mam chayo vyabhicharena. So this means full engagement in devotional service. So when we are, so there must be some times we're not fully engaged in devotional service. And what is that? Whenever we are, and this is a very important point, whenever we are entertaining, right? Whenever we are entertaining the taste for materialistic activities, then we are not going forward. That is not accepted as devotional service. When we are having an argument with somebody, that's not devotional service. When we are thinking about an argument we had, uncontrollably, without a solution, without recognizing or assuming the mood of humility, that is not devotional service.
What about sleeping?
You should be thinking of Krishna when you sleep. All the time. And you should sleep good so that you can have energy to think nicely and do service.
Okay.
So that is not devotional service. And so you may make a lot of progress. Like I've made a lot of progress, and then I find that suddenly I go backwards a little bit. It's because I entertain a proclivity. And I'll give you one example that was really big for me for a long time. And I never recognized it. I was fault-finding. Holy cow. Criticizing. Bang, 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 bang. More like shooting myself in the foot is what I was doing. And I would justify it. I would say, I'm telling the truth, therefore it's not fault-finding. No, that is exactly fault-finding. It's just that you're not blaspheming, you're not inventing. You're not making things up, but you're like the kind of insect that goes for the salt. You're the fly attracted to salt, not the bee attracted to honey. So I would do this, and I would somehow enjoy it because I had a taste for it. And then I would wonder why I was chanting difficult rounds. Why are my rounds so difficult? It's because aparad, in one form or another. And that's just one example, but everybody has it. And everybody has a different taste. So, and I think really this is a good reason why it's helpful, to look and understand what is my nature and what are the behaviors I should entertain. And it's given in the Bhagavad Gita. If I'm a Kshatriya, then I should look in the Bhagavad Gita and see what is written there. This is what I can do. I can be resourceful. Right? I can be heroic. It's okay, no problem. It's all right. If I have a more intellectual, Brahminical, right? I can be honest, thoroughly honest. Not only, but I'm verpflichtet. I'm obligated to that end. And when I step outside of that, punar mushtika bhava. Again, I become a mouse, right? So this is a big obstacle, because maybe a person may have some some taste, right? We're just going to focus in on this one right here, this Brahminical, right? Some taste for that, but they also have a taste for something else. They've got one leg backwards. And then they're entertaining, thinking somehow they're justifying their engagements that are not in devotional service. Excuse me. Maybe they're not being thoroughly honest, or maybe they're doing a little bit of manipulation. I was surprised at how much advancement I made once I stopped criticizing. When I stopped fault finding, I think that's when the curtain really opened up. Then I did it again. I became so proud. I was like, oh, let me tell you. And then I had to take some time off. Go in the corner and sit. But once you just stop that, you have to look at yourself and see. Just be honest. Take an honest look at yourself. What am I not doing right? Be really honest, because actually that's the most difficult thing, to be honest with yourself. It's so easy to justify misbehavior. I've done it so many times. We have a mentor, for example, and the mentor kind of coaches us. But the mentor maybe is coaching us. I'm talking about not your guru, for example, right? Just be absolutely clear, so there's no what did he say, I want to be very clear about this. But you may have a mentor that's not guiding you in the right direction. That can happen. So that's why it means brutally honest. You have to actually be brutally honest. Are my engagements counting as devotional service? Because if they're not, and you're putting so much effort into them, then you're not helping yourself. You're paddling backwards. Okay, so we made that nice point. Now we go back to the purport one more time. So, they were immensely supplied with all necessities of life due to the good government. So, good government means engagement in devotional service. Because by performance of yajna, rains are falling. This is written in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not a myth or a fairy tale or an analogy. That's not an analogy. Because of performance of yajna, rain is falling. So therefore, we should, in whatever capacity or facility we have, everybody is somehow or other as a leader, right? We are leading ourselves or leading others. But we should engage in devotional service and performance of yajna. And we should regularly read Srimad Bhagavatam. I know that this works. If you just read 15 minutes a day, that should be the minimum. Because everybody has engagements. We have to work. We have to we have to maintain the body. We have to maintain our responsibilities. But we should at least read for 15 or 20 minutes a day. Because that means that good government means you engage people in reading Srimad Bhagavatam daily. That's what it means. Because Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, I think it's first canto, it could be second canto, I don't remember what chapter, he writes that reading Srimad Bhagavatam is just like chanting Hare Krishna. Because if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, what happens here is, chanting is, and I'm very grateful today, we had better rounds than yesterday. I was so happy. But they're not always good rounds, but I push through anyway. But when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, you are pulled into the Bhagavatam. And you are hopefully reading attentively. Because when you're doing that attentive reading, it's just like you're chanting Hare Krishna. This will put the fire out. There is a fire for happiness in our hearts because we are not fully engaged. Just because we have a good day on book distribution, right? Or we do a little nice rounds one morning,
That doesn't mean it's all clear. The game is over. You won. That just means you did okay for a short time. But the game goes on. The fire is still burning. We still want happiness. Therefore, we need vyabhicharena, bhakti yoga. Yeah, we need this constant, full immersion in devotional service. But we are starting out slowly, which is fine. So we need to read Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhaktivedanta purports, and try to be immersed in that for at least 15 minutes a day. It will help to put that fire out. Nothing, you can go on book distribution and you can think about something else. And you can still do a lot of books. I know. I've wondered what is going on here. I'm in Maya, but books are going out. It's a special mercy day. No questions asked. But it's not always like that. So you really, really need to read and get absorbed just read a few purports. The fire will go down. And that's what good government means. In bad government is when that fire is raging out of control, and it's that fire to be happy. But because identification with the body is so strong, even for people that are reading Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, and doing book distribution for 50 years, 20 years, 30 years, still the identification with the body is strong because it's not just the gross body, then it becomes a subtle body. Don't you know who I am? I know I'm somebody because I hear from other people. But no, you're not. You're not what you're hearing. You're Das Anudas. Even after 150 years, you're still Das Anudas. And when you perfect your life, you will be Das Anudas. So there, humility we can understand. That is a sign of advancement. If somebody is humble, unbelievably humble, you can understand this person, I should pay obeisances and listen to what they say, right? Yeah. So there are examples. I'm not talking about myself, obviously, right? I don't want to mislead anybody. But please, that is a sign you can understand. And so, right. That fire is burning. That fire is burning. And then what happens, and this is what we need to talk about. I was reading about it this morning, just by coincidence, in the 3rd chapter, verse 37 of the Bhagavad Gita. But also, it's kind of indirectly talked about in the 11th verse of the 1st canto, 1st chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the summum bonum? What is the essence of all Scripture? Why do we want to read and understand the essence of all Scripture? Apasumedasaha, right? They are very unfortunate in this age. What's this verse? 1:110. Somebody knows this verse? 1:110. Bhagavatam. I used to know this verse. Mandabhagya hyupadrutaha. Mandasu matayo mandabhagya hyupadrutaha. Anyway, in this age of Kali, people have a short attention span. They're always frustrated. They're always, on edge, easily disturbed. They don't live very long. So what can we do to help them, right? What is the essence of all Scripture? That's the question. So we are not living very long. We have this burning fire desire in our heart to enjoy. We want to be happy. Anandama bhyasat, right? So that lust in the mode of passion transforms itself into anger. And that's bad news. Because tamagun, anger, means destruction. Means things are being destroyed. Hurt, it means pain, hurt. So we have to raise to the mode of goodness. That's the solution. And if you read in the Bhagavad Gita, that's what Prabhupada writes in this verse, 327, in the commentary. You have to raise to the mode of goodness. You have to lift it up. If you see the passions getting strong, look at yourself. If you see that passion's getting strong, what comes next? Anger. Your whole body will become contaminated because the blood in your body will become polluted. So quickly, raise it up. Mode of goodness, raise it up. I can specifically remember times when I was out on book distribution And the passion was raising, even though I was doing books, because in the beginning I was mode of goodness. But then, because of not maintaining vyabhicharena, right? Because of not having that full engagement, the mode of passion was going there because I was, because of different reasons, but anyway, it was rising. They're always competing, right? These modes. Rising. End of the day, I thought I was home free. I wasn't, but I knew. I could feel the passion in my body. I could feel it. And if I read, I'd be okay. If I read Bhagavatam, Bhakti Vedanta purports, I would be okay. But if I did not, the next day, mode of ignorance. So what does that mean? That means you should be able to recognize it in yourself, and you should be able to recognize it in others. And you need to rise to the mode of goodness. And the best way to do that is association of the Bhagavatam. So that's what's missing. That needs to be there. Otherwise, disaster. And then, so then we can know that if we don't have good government, we have war, we have greed, we have exploitation of the natural environment for the short-term monetary gain of a few individuals at the exploitation of the environment. And a lot of people, exploiting a lot of people who, unfortunately are somehow or other exploited because of perhaps not having because they're very simple-hearted and minded, or maybe not simple-hearted, but very simple-minded, and they just, they engage in coal mining, for example, or something, because they don't have another option. So they get exploited. So that's what happens when there's not good government, because that fire of lust, right, greed, is another transformation of it, desire to possess, achahara, right? And then we can see, therefore, we have poor government all over the world. But still, we have a little bit of goodness there, because devotees are chanting Hare Krishna and performing Sankirtan Yagya. That's the Yagya, to keep that rain falling. To keep us from, what is it called? This global warming. We should be chanting Hare Krishna. That is the solution, really. If everybody would chant Hare Krishna, they'd stop eating meat. Automatically, they would stop it. They would realize it. I once approached a person who with a book, and he said, I'm an atheist. I said, well, look, take a cookbook, vegetarian cookbook. And next time I saw him a couple of weeks later, he wasn't an atheist anymore. He read that cookbook. And then I gave him another book. Yeah, so this works. The philosophy works. And the whole global warming thing would change, but I better not, people might, anyway. Yeah, so the point is there. And then what is being, so that's that. So we have good government, we have bad government. And then we have life according to Vedic principles. And what's so nice about this purport is that it really follows the translation. It's so nice. Nothing needs to be invented. Prabhupada's simply talking about the verse. He read what the previous acharyas wrote, and then he wrote something. But he didn't just write something, he was inspired by God directly. Krishna told him what to write. So don't think that anybody can just write a purport on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? That's why it's called Bhakti Vedanta purports. And it will be Bhakti Vedanta purports for the next 10,000 years. Next 10,000 years. We will be reading Bhakti Vedanta purports. And so we'll just talk about this then. So that is the secret for happiness. All the necessities of life will be satisfied and met. But we have to really, in order to, for this, whole program to work, it helps to do a little bit of introspection, to look and see how we're being affected by the modes, to protect ourselves from the mode of ignorance and getting angry by increasing the mode of goodness. Always increasing. It's not just, I read Bhagavatam, now I can read something else. Keep on reading. Keep on reading. Jai Shri Shri Vijay Gauranga Dayanitai Ki Jai. And this is such an important book. It's such an important book that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he wrote, he's quoted as saying that if all of the books in the world were destroyed, But the Srimad Bhagavatam was maintained. There would be no loss. So we need to read Bhagavatam every day. Just like we eat every day, like we chant our rounds every day. Read something else afterwards. First read Bhagavatam. Or only read Bhagavatam. There won't be any loss. If you look at... Anyway. Are there any questions? That's basically what I want to say. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was reading Bhagavatam.
Yes, sir. Did you read Bhagavatam first?
Yes, sure.
All right.
I will read it.
You will or did you?
No, I did.
Okay. Bhaktivedanta purports?
Yes.
All right.
Sometimes I skip them. But...
That's bad. That's Bhagavatam. Okay, thank you. Bhagavatam means Bhaktivedanta purports. And let me tell you why. And then you can ask your question.
Okay.
Because every acharya has written commentary on the Bhagavatam. Why did they do that? Because this Bhagavatam is the nectar. It's immaculate. Markolos? Yeah. And it needs to be understood by everybody, but because times are always changing and time is this wheel that just destroys everything, like good intelligence and memory, that's why Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, he wrote another commentary. For us, he wrote this commentary so that we would actually understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because if we're not reading that commentary, we're missing. We're missing. Don't think that it's okay not to read the commentary. You must read the commentary. If you do nothing else, read the commentary. Read the Bhaktivedanta purports. That's why he did that. That's why he did that. He didn't have to, Jesus. Yeah. No, Bhagavatam means Bhaktivedanta purports. It doesn't mean the translation. It means the Bhaktivedanta purports. Please read the Bhaktivedanta purports when you read the Bhagavatam. And so you have a question?
Yeah, and it was mentioned that the subtle body and the gross body, by the grace of Krishna, will be dissolved.
Mm.
So, when is that happening?
The gross body is dissolved every time you end your life and take another birth.
But during this life.
The subtle, by practicing, what is happening? I'll tell you what is happening. You have to perform devotional service. I know that you've heard that before, but you probably haven't realized it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking this question.
How can I know this?
Because you have to apply the process. So let me just tell you something. It's interesting, but when you're driving in a car, right? You feel the car is an extension of your body. You feel like you are that car. So we are driving in the body. In the body, we have become thoroughly convinced it's an extension of ourself. We are this body. Now, when we perform devotional service, what happens is something changes from the consciousness. It's about Krishna consciousness. Because from the consciousness, suddenly, we aren't engaging in activities for ourselves. We're engaging for somebody else. And when that happens, it's like a light. Prabhupada compares it to a light turning on. It's like a light turning on. Because suddenly, you are in the body. You are not the body. You are in the body. And that is how you dissolve that, sir. That's how it's dissolved. Because the consciousness has to change. The consciousness, even as we are advancing in Krishna consciousness, and we have to be honest with ourselves. Exactly. It takes time. Don't think that it didn't happen last night, it's done, it doesn't work, or whatever. It'll take years. You see, things have to happen first. Like you have to be able to accept authority. That's in the Bhagavad Gita. What is it? Tad Vidarshinaha. Tadvidi Panipatina, thank you. You have to firstly be able to accept authority. That's like a first step. The first step before that is you have to be able to follow 4 regulative principles. You have to be able to follow these 4 regulative principles and chant Hare Krishna. Before that, you should have at least a little bit of faith. Because we have to be honest, full faith is there when that process has completed itself. Because until then, still there will be something that comes up. There'll be something that pops up. Even if and this is written in the Bhagavatam, and there's the example of Bharat Maharaj, who was at this level of bhav, which is a very advanced level of Krishna consciousness. But still he was attracted by a deer, and he gave up his devotional service. So something came up, even at an advanced level. So the process of faith wasn't complete. So there must be a little bit of faith, and then you have to have sangha, association of devotees. This process is important, but somewhere there, then, you really have to be following the etiquette, and the etiquette dictates that you accept a spiritual master. That's the etiquette. That's the etiquette. That's etiquette. It's about being polite. Right? Because the other option is you become arrogant and think you don't need one. You are the spiritual master. Now, I'm not saying this is you, but this is what happens on a very subtle level. It's a very subtle thing that happens. Everybody in our disciplic succession has a spiritual master. And everybody follows the instructions of their guru. Everybody. They don't argue. None of them argue. Nobody argues with the guru. Right, we need Shiksha Guru, right. Well, that's what it means, Shiksha Guru. Ours is a Shiksha line. Our disciplic succession is based on instruction. It's a Shiksha line. If you look at Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's saying, what is it, in the Narottam Das Thakur, right? Or Lokanath, or there's a gap. And a point being made, there's like a gap of 4 generations. In our parampara, it's not like before Lord Chaitanya. There's a gap. Why is there a gap? It's because it's a shiksha. But what does that mean? What does that imply? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was not acting independently. He wrote purports on the Srimad Bhagavatam. You can't do that and act independently. He wasn't acting independently. He was following his guru, his shiksha guru. If you look at Madhavacharya, he took initiation from Srila Vyasadeva. There's a big gap. He saw Srila Vyasadeva. He took instruction from him. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur saw his guru. He took instruction from him. Everybody follows their guru. Nobody gets out of that one. Or you don't make advancement at all, period. Otherwise, you're not making advancement. And you'll know. People will become very puffed up, proud. You know? You'll know. It will show. And they will fall down. It's okay. Maybe Krishna will keep them in the fold. You know? Yes, sir.
I think there's a big problem nowadays that people are saying that I can do it alone. I was also smart, but you cannot do it alone. You need you accept, at least in the beginning, Prabhupada, then you have you, and then you cannot accept authorities, then you cannot grow in devotional service. So
Yeah.
it's an important thing, but you need some also in the devotee. Also sometimes our bhaktas say, I don't need it. It's more understanding.
Well, you know, why is that? Right? Why is that? And it's because of pride. It's because of pride. Pride is, really close to envy. They're like 2 cousins.
What is envy?
Nide. Nide is there, and pride are there. They feed each other. They complement each other. They walk together. Right. Envy. And enviness is there because we're envious of God, and therefore we're envious of His devotees. But to make advancement in spiritual life, you must be humble. And therefore, this process of accepting a spiritual master, or any authority, the temple commander, even if you're a bhakta, you accept the authority of the temple commander, the temple president. That process will help you to cultivate humility. You have to have humility. It's hard. I remember they tell me that when I first moved into the temple, and I thought, what does it mean? Nobody could tell me what humility meant. And I had no idea what it meant. But it's written in the Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, verses 8 through 12. It's like the second paragraph, first sentence. In the commentary, the Bhaktivedanta purport explains what is humility. Not being anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. That's humility. Prabhupada says it beautifully. And then he talks about what pridelessness is. And that's also, I don't have that one, I don't want to quote, but it's very good. It's something about people being so puffed up about their religion. Something like that. It's so wonderful. Everything is there. He's described envy in the Nectar of Devotion. Everything is there. He was empowered to do that. Therefore we should read his purports. Therefore we should read his purports. And if you don't understand how to assimilate the purport, keep reading. You will naturally assimilate it because you will rise to the mode of goodness. So this is the key. Then you have to have this submissiveness, dear sir.
Yes.
This mood of humility, somehow or other, in one lifetime you have to cultivate it. It may take a few. It's hard. But don't give up on that. Once you cultivate that mood of humility, then you really start to make more advancement. But once you actually enter into this zone of devotional service, of Krishna consciousness, where your activities are performed out of love for Krishna, then you'll see the ego starts to dissolve. Because it goes away, it's not there, there's no room. There's no room for pride in front of the Lord. If you're serving Krishna, you cannot be proud. Because there's no room. There's no room. You're serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no room. There's no room. If you're serving him, there is no room for pride. If you're serving your guru, who's giving you Krishna, there's no room for pride. If there is, punar mushtika bhava. Again, become a mouse and go into the corner. Be alone for a little while. That's rough. You don't like that when it happens once or twice. It's enough. You're like, okay, didn't like it. I won't argue anymore. I'm sorry. But then you learn. Then you start to become humble. You'll get it. It takes time. So Krishna, you can pray if you want. He'll make an elaborate arrangement to force your humility. If you do not volunteer, it will be forced upon you. It will be forced upon you. Arrangement will be made. Because I'll tell you what happens. You become proud, arrogant, rude. Then you take birth again. And a nice arrangement's been made to teach you all about humility. Which is great for your spiritual life. Which is all we're really caring about anyway, right? We shouldn't be concerned for honor or dishonor because they pertain to the body. Right? And we are not the body. Right? If you keep, so then, that's called pride. It's okay. We're all here together, brother, We're all honoring prasadam afterwards. But if you're here, you're accepting this philosophy, just try to apply it. Do the dishes. Do them again every day. When I first joined, I was in the kitchen. My first service I can remember in this birth was washing dishes. I asked on Janmashtami if I could do some service. The gentleman said, yes, you can wash some dishes. They were the deity's dishes, so I felt special. Pride, bing! But I didn't know really, I was still kind of, Panchatattva deities were very kind in Hawaii. It was Hawaii. But, I'm sorry, sir?
I have other things to do today.
So don't forget about Krishna.
Okay.
All right. So that's it. Yes, sir.
But I think also we have to believe that it will come in the old age because we are trying
Mm-hmm.
and we do it every day
Mm-hmm.
and try our best and then on one
It happens, not over.
it comes automatically I think, when we stay on this track and then in the old age when we go deeper
Mm-hmm.
deeper then it will come and we will experience it.
Mm-hmm.
This is my
You will experience it.
we all
We will all experience it. Yes, we will, if we stay on the path.
yes when we stay and when we are focused.
You have to stay on the path and you will experience it. Even if you commit great offenses, huge aparads, you have to apologize, of course, find those people, because otherwise you take birth again. But then you can, yes, if you stay on the path, you will make it. And the thing is, like, you can look at yourself and see how you've changed from 1 week. 1 week to the next, you should make change, but you have to apply the process. There's a process. It's very confidential knowledge. It's very confidential. The relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is the most confident. Well, is like the most confidential. And then there's a relationship between also you have with Krishna, a relationship. That's the most confidential. But this relationship is, you cannot get to Krishna without the mercy of the spiritual master. So that relationship is very confidential. So you have to read every day and pray about how to make it work. Because that is the way it works. You do it through that. You approach Krishna through the Guru. You have to. You cannot go around. The Guru is not a badge you wear, a patch. That's not the Guru. The Guru is in your heart and gets you back to Godhead. But you have to accept the Guru in your heart, period. You have to really, if you do that, you will get the result. But there's that fear, there's that hesitancy, there's that pride. Right? The doubt. That pride is like a doubt. The doubt that we are chanting every morning, Sakshat Haritvan, 8 verses. It's Gurva Ashtaka. Ashtaka means 8. 8 verses. But we are not having full faith. We're looking at the wall, looking at the floor. What's for breakfast? I ate too late last night. No.
Better to look at the wall than to the Matajis.
I won't comment on that. And maybe for some people, I'm not looking at them. I'm trying to look at the deity.
But when you look at the deity, the Mataji are not there. If you look at the wall.
His faith is so beautiful. It's hard to be distracted.
Okay, if you say so.
Then just keep looking. It works. Just don't give up. The process works. But we were talking about something that was important. Oh yes, you have to go through the Guru. You have to commit yourself in your heart. You see, you really have to commit yourself in your heart. And you will get the result. Everything will be there. It may be difficult, there may be trials and tribulations, but if you are simple-hearted, then you will get the result. That's our process. Prabhupada has given it to us. It works. It's been going on for a long time. People have been practicing this way. Just try to go a little deeper in the relationship with your Guru. It will work. It will work. There may be trials and tribulations, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj says in the Brahma Samhita that these trials and tribulations are burning the sinful activities within your heart, the sinful desires, and they burn them. So you have to have that. You have to. There will be difficulty. But what else are you going to do with your life? Loitering in the material world until Kalki comes and misses it and just cut. And it's like being born right now is like being born in the lottery. It's like winning the lottery. We won the lottery. Woo, bingo, brother, let me tell you. Cash in. Now you got to cash in. You've got one job. All right. Something else is there?
Yeah.
One more question from you, sir. If you don't give up, Nicholas, you'll get the result.
No, not a question. But you're right. It's much better to stay in the devotional service even if it's difficult.
It'll be difficult. You can count on it being difficult. That's why you take initiation. You make a vow in front of the fire. Because nobody knows what's going on here, right? But the older devotees know. The young bhakt is like, woo, party, I'm a devotee now. No, it will be difficult. That's why there's a fire sacrifice. That's why it's a big deal. Because it will be difficult. You will have difficulty.
Yeah, it was always difficult.
And it will continue being difficult
Yes.
until you become humble. And that difficulty is supposed to make you humble. Yeah. Like a bear hug, breathe, squeeze the air out of you. It will be difficult. That's what it means. That's why we make a commitment to spiritual life. It will be difficult. I've had so many difficult moments. I can't tell you. Oh my gosh, you don't know. I can tell you stories. You'd just be like, but I don't want to take the story, It's not about me. Everybody has difficulty. You can hear Prabhupada's stories. He had difficulty. He's showing an example. He's an eternal servant of the Lord, but he's giving by his example. You see how difficult it will be. He had to leave India, Vrindavan. Oh, wow. At an old age, take a boat to America with some books and a little bit of Lakshmi. Sometimes living here, sometimes living there. Nobody took him seriously. He had to keep struggling for years. It wasn't that he got here and everybody's like, yeah, woo, you're what we were looking for, waiting. No, he had to struggle. He didn't have a place where he could sleep. He had sometimes in this house, sometimes that house, meat, cat food with his boga in the refrigerator. But he, gives the example. So if you want that, it will be difficult. It will be difficult. It will be difficult. But don't tell people that when they first join and get a book. let them find out, on their own. You don't got to tell them; they'll figure it out. But once you start practicing devotional service, the longer you start practicing it, the easier it gets. You start because it's sukham kartam avyayam. It's joyfully performed. But the problem is you're wrestling in the beginning with your false ego, in your mind, and maybe some residual bad karma. That's planted in your heart to make you become humble. Get better. Don't give up. Yeah, I had so many difficult times. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it on the little video thing here. I'm serious. I can tell you later if you want. We go do some moving.
Yes.
Don't give up, dude. You'll get it if you don't give up.
I won't.
All right. Anything else? Thank you. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.